Welcome viewers once again to this course on educational leadership. In the last class we are discussing about metacognition and how it facilitates in declarative knowledge, procedural knowledge and conditional knowledge. So, now we will discuss about the benefits of metacognition, metacognitive forms of thinking in our various cognitive processes. So, metacognitive forms of thinking and its benefits. Metacognitive monitoring, another thing is the metacognition, metacognitive monitoring, how it generates awareness. So, when we are engaged in metacognition and we are evaluating our own cognitive processes, thinking process. So, here we are also monitoring our own cognitive process or thought processes. So, this cognitive metacognitive monitoring, it generates awareness about the match between a particular case of metacognitive knowledge to the standard criteria for that knowledge. For example, how accurately people metacognitively monitor the cognitive activities. Like for example, so we are trying to attempt we are trying to attain that means to achieve a certain level of mastery, or we try to achieve a particular goal set for us at a particular criterion level. Like when we are engaged in either solving a problem or achieving a goal, the goal has been fixed at a certain criterion level. Okay. So, when we are engaged in metacognitive monitoring, so constantly we are evaluating, monitoring our own progress and mapping it with the criteria level set for that goals. Okay. So, so it creates a kind of general awareness, it creates a kind of awareness to perfectly match between this particular metacognitive knowledge, case of metacognitive knowledge that we are engaged in, and whether it matches with that criterion or not. So, in that way people accurately, that means evaluate how accurately metacognitively monitor cognitive activities, like whether we are adopting whatever cognitive strategies we are adopting, whether it perfectly helps us or matches with the criterion level or not, or whether we will be able to achieve that goal or not. So, constantly we are in an effort to map it, to compare it, to match it with the expected criterion. Like we constantly evaluate, monitor our own mechanism, thought processes, like whatever we have selected, the hypothesis, the strategy we have selected, would it be helpful, really helpful and accurate and correct or right to achieve that goal, or the criterion goal is very high, or it needs something different, some extra effort or some new strategy, etc. We constantly match and map with this metacognitive knowledge with the criterion knowledge. Okay. So, metacognitive control, again metacognitive control utilizes result of the metacognitive monitoring as an input. So, in this process, when we are constantly comparing or matching our knowledge, metacognitive knowledge with the criterion, goal, etc. So, that knowledge itself, it acts as an input. So, that is called the metacognitive control. So, when again we try to evaluate it, control and evaluate those processes. So, these knowledge, these constantly matching, trying to match it with the things, it acts as an input material, it acts as a monitoring, as a this kind of metacognitive input monitoring, it acts as an input and further generates the strategy, and it further enables us in formulating new hypothesis, new strategy, new techniques, strategies, and the intention was to direct the thinking and action towards the goal. So, to be more accurate, to adopt a more accurate, more appropriate, more strategic step towards the goal achievement. So, for example, capable of changing the future responses based on the feedback generated by the prior experience. So, when we are engaged in the metacognitive process, first is the metacognitive monitoring. It is a process where we constantly try to match or map our abilities, approaches and strategy with the criterion goal. Okay. And in the next step, that is in metacognitive control, these thought processes, monitoring processes acts as an input material for metacognitive control, which further helps us in generating the new strategies or enabling our intention to achieve, to redirect our thinking, to redirect our cognitive behavior towards that goal. Okay. So, in this process, that you can say metacognitive monitoring is the initial stage and metacognitive control is the later stage of being more successful towards the goal attainment, goal achievement. So, as a result of which we gain some experience. Okay. So, we gain some experience as a result of our reflective thinking, the feedback we receive from our own thought processes, etc. So, which helps us in forward transfer, like which helps us in applying those things in the future learning behavior. So, another form of benefits of metacognitive thing is the self-regulated learning. Self-regulated learning, that means very often, as because we are engaged in metacognitive monitoring, metacognitive control, and gradually become successful or in directing our cognitive behavior and actions towards the goal achievement. So, here in this process we gain experience and we become more efficient in our own cognitive monitoring, etc. So, that is called gradually we grasp control over our own learning process, that is called the self regulated learning. So, gradually when we grasp the control over our own learning process, because we can very well know our own thought processes, our metacognition has been metacognitive processes has been strengthened because of the rigorous practice and the experience of dealing with different kinds of the problems. So, gradually we acquire the self regulated learning. Self regulated learning, it involves both the metacognitive monitoring and control, because very often when we are engaged in any kind of learning and problem solving exercise, very often very quickly, very aptly we use this metacognitive monitoring and control processes to shape and adapt our thinking over the time span of engaging in an extended complex task. So, very often we can flexibly use both these metacognitive monitoring and control to shape our thoughts, to reshape our strategies, to adapt our thinking according to the requirement of the problems. So, when we are engaged in different kinds of complex tasks, and enable us to perform it, to deliver it within the time span, within the time span framework, framework. So, it needs multiple forms of knowledge, tactics, strategies. So, it makes us more flexible in adapting multiple strategies, multiple tactics, multiple approaches, knowledge from different sources, and to put it together, bring it together. Together the three forms of the knowledge, the declarative knowledge, the procedural knowledge, as well as the conditional knowledge, to blend it strategically to achieve the goals. Strategically to achieve the goals, also improve the learning capacity, that is if then and else. So, self learning regulated learning, you can say, is it's a benefit, it's an outcome of engaging ourselves very often in metacognitive processes while we are engaged in learning or problem solving behavior. So, it gradually empowers us to monitor, to control our own learning experiences, our own thought processes, and strategically blend all the declarative knowledge, procedural knowledge, contextual or conditional knowledge, etc., for achieving our learning goal, and it improves our learning capacity, or you can say it also enhances our self efficacy. Then the next benefit is the calibration. Calibration is the fit between metacognition and the performance. So, when we can perfectly match, our metacognition, like the analysis, all kinds of cognitive analysis, monitoring, control, and speculation, and reshaping, rethinking the strategy, adaptation of our action plans according to the goal requirements. So, it is a perfect match between metacognition and the performance, like all the outcome of these metacognitive exercises, it perfectly match with the performance or the expected learning outcome. So, that is called the calibration. That how this calibration takes place, this is the, you can say, final benefit of or ultimate outcome of metacognition, the fit between metacognition and the performance. So, in this perfect matching of metacognition and the outcome and the performance. So, the degree to which a person's judgment about his or her performance corresponds to his or her actual performance. Like initially while facing a problem, when I was evaluating how difficult it would be, what strategies would be appropriate, how much I should blend the technical knowledge, domain knowledge, declarative knowledge with the know-hows in a particular context, this and that, when I had formulated those strategies and evaluated the whole thing and prepared a kind of design plan or action plan. So now and accordingly I had moved to resolve that issue or the problem and resolve that issue or solve the problem. Now actually I am experiencing that it has perfectly matched with my performance, and actually it has happened in that way and it perfectly corresponds and matches, and I have got the exact outcome, learning outcome, the actual performance, the actual goal. So this actual perception of performance mastery. So this is the just most accurate, like whatever I had expected, I had evaluated, monitored and regulated, designed in that way, and my performance exactly matches with that, neither overestimating my performance nor underestimating. It is just perfectly matches with my performance. The way I had designed it, the way I had designed the action plan, the way I had approached it, the way I had adopted the different kind of strategies, etc. Now it has perfectly matched with the performance, that is the outcome performance, actual performance. That perfect matching is the result of calibration. So that is called neither overestimating nor underestimating. So here mapping the performance with the metacognitive strategies, metacognitions. So when this match, the fit between the metacognition and performance perfectly matches, that is called the calibration takes place. That is with regard to mapping the performance. Second is that to foster effective metacognition, learning environments should offer appropriate scaffolding aligned with the nature of the task, knowledge being studied and the learner's characteristics. So to strengthen this kind of calibration, this kind of perfect matching of person's judgment about his metacognition and his actual performance. So to foster this kind of metacognition among our students in the learning environment, we should offer, that means the teachers, the administrators, the educators, they must offer the appropriate scaffolding. That means for each kind of complex task, complex skill, complex competency, etc., the teachers, the educators, they must blend this perfect scaffolding aligned with the nature of the task. The scaffolding, not that randomly scaffolding techniques, etc., but the scaffolding as it is required in the particular context, with the type of the task at hand, the nature of the task, knowledge being studied and the learner's characteristics. So the learner's characteristics, the appropriate task and the knowledge being studied or the competency to be developed, which are embedded in the particular context, all these things should be properly aligned, perfectly blended with the scaffolding technique to facilitate effective metacognition. So then to help the learners engage in productive self-regulated learning, at the same time we also, that means the learning environment, the educators, the teacher, we should also help the learners engage in productive self-regulated learning. So we must give them the opportunity, chance to not only solve the problems, but to again encourage them to practice metacognition in a more productive way, in a more constructive way. So as a result of that practice, rigorous practice, regular practice of metacognition of whatever they are studying, whatever they are doing, whatever their problems they are dealing with, to engage them in the productive self-regulated learning. So not only engage in the metacognitive practices, but also explaining it, narrating it, articulating it explicitly, so they can understand their own learning process and can improve and monitor, control and improve. So improve their own learning process, that is called the productive self-regulated learning. So when they are engaged in metacognitive processes, they can explain it, they can articulate it, they can justify it, they can give feedback to themselves. Yes, they can bring modification and change in their strategies, they can evaluate their own strategies. So all these exercises will help them in being more productive in self-regulated learning. And learning environments would be designed to foster effective use of motivation and metacognitive strategies. So for enhancing the productive self-regulated learning, two things are also important. One is the learning environment, which is designed in such a way to foster effective use of metacognitive strategies and the motivation. So, through the scaffolding we can properly align the learning environments, the task, the situations or the context, and we can also, it also adapts to the learning styles of the learners, and it also motivates the learner to engage themselves in metacognitive strategies, and how effectively we can practice metacognitive strategies, that can also be aligned. So, we can promote this kind of whole thing, align them properly to get the maximum benefit of metacognition, and to make the learner more independent through self-productive, self-regulated learning. So, next technique is next innovative approach is another is called the cognitive apprenticeship. So, this is also another approach, innovative approach towards teaching learning behavior or cognition. So, cognitive apprenticeship, it advocates for like knowledge must be used in solving real world problems. So, the basic philosophy of this cognitive apprenticeship is that whatever knowledge we gain, we acquire, these are not just theoretical knowledge, not just abstract knowledge, not the bookish knowledge. So, whatever knowledge we gain, it should be used for solving the real world problems. And it also advocates for development of cognitive skills. So, when we acquire the knowledge, it should also enhance our various cognitive skills, abilities like higher order thinking skills, analytical skills, critical thinking skills, evaluation skill like metacognitive skills, imaginary skills, creative thinking skills, all kinds of cognitive skills, that is the development of cognitive skills and generalizing these to apply in different settings. So, it is not just rote memorization of certain things or applying these in the different contexts, but also higher order thinking skills, that is development of cognitive skill, higher order thinking skills, and generalizing these skills to apply in different settings, and to think about how these skills can enable us, help us in resolving different kinds of problems in different settings, designed to bring the cognitive processes into open, where students can observe and practice them. So, in the teaching learning situation, the learning programs, the academic programs should be designed in such a way that how to make all these cognitive processes or higher level cognitive skills be very explicit, be very you can say conspicuous, be very clear and open to everybody, so that anybody can observe it, anybody can imitate it, practice it. So, designed to bring all these cognitive processes to open. If we are engaged in creative thinking, if we are engaged in high level of analytical thinking, if you are engaged in high level of critical thinking, higher level of imaginary skills, etc., then how to exhibit, how to demonstrate it, so that the students will be able to learn it by observing them and practicing them. Okay. So, cognitive apprenticeship, it also says that the learning programs should be designed in such a way to bring those cognitive skills and processes open, to bring this to the open forum, open observation forum of the students. So, to help them, to enable them to observe it, to imitate it, often imitate it, to practice it, to experience it, so that they can quickly learn those skills, they can quickly learn those higher level of cognitive skills to apply it. So, tasks are sequenced to reflect the changing demands of the learning situations. So, accordingly, when we want to make it open and we want that our learners, our students should develop those skills, we have to design certain tasks in such a way that it has been sequenced to reflect the changing demands of learning. Gradually, when they are learning, when they are observing, gradually it also reflects its consequences, it also reflects its outcomes, it also reflects its improvement, improvement in the performance, and reflect the changing demands of the learning. So, when the tasks are being designed in a hierarchical order, in order to exhibit, in order to demonstrate the higher order cognitive skills. So, it must be sequenced, it must be arranged in a very inductive way, in a very orderly sequential way, so that at the completion of each step of this cognitive task, it exhibits, it reflects certain kind of change, certain kind of result in the learning performance. So, in that way, like you can say the like the instructional design, should be sequenced in such a way that at every point of progress, learning and performance, it gives us some kind of feedback which formally, which openly you can say complements the results, which openly explains the outcomes. So, similarly, cognitive apprenticeship focuses on the 4 dimensions that constitute any learning environment. So, here the focus is that we must give some kind of cognitive training to the students, to the learners, some kind of apprenticeship on the training of the cognitive skills, cognitive process, a higher level of cognitive processes, in terms of giving them or converting these things into different kinds of tasks and arranging those tasks in a sequential way, so that by performing each task and subtask, they can understand, they can learn the cognitive skills in a very gradual and sequential way. And for that matter, 4 dimensions are important. One is the content, method, sequence and the sociology. So, content is the basic theme content. The content that is the content that means the content is related, whether it is related to higher cognitive processes related to designing a machine, a kind of equipment, or a automobile design, or what kind of thing we want to design. The content, method, how we are going to do it, and sequence, how it has been arranged logically, and the sociology, in the context, in which context it has been embedded. So, in this context, we will just go through a table which better explains it. Okay. So, here we can say the content primarily says about the domain knowledge, that in order to solve that task, to solve the problem, to complete the task, what kind of domain knowledge we need, we need to acquire. Then the heuristic strategies, that is the shortcuts, mental shortcuts, the facts, the strategies, heuristic strategies, control strategies and the learning strategies. Control strategies says about the approach of directing one solution process, generally applicable, and the heuristic strategies applicable techniques for accomplishing the task, and the learning strategies about the about how to learn new concepts, etc. So, content that means primarily deals with these 4 kinds of things: domain knowledge, heuristic strategy, control strategy, learning strategy. And the methods, like the techniques, the ways how to teach them, that is methods is the first, either through modeling the teacher, they themselves can model the behavior, performs the task, that is the modeling. Then coaching the teacher, coaching is that the teacher observes and facilitates while the students they are performing actually. And scaffolding, the teacher provides supports to help the students perform the task, that means gradually help the teacher, helping the students, supporting the students for performing the task and learning by it. Articulation, that is openly explaining, the teacher encourages students to verbalize their knowledge and thinking, articulation. Then reflection, reflecting upon the performance. Then exploration, the teacher invites the students to pose and solve their own problem, okay, own problem, explore the new factors, emerging factors, explore and they expose the students to pose and solve their own problems. Again, sequencing, orderly arranging those things, ordering the learning activities, increasing complexity from simple to complex gradually in an inductive way, increasing diversity, practice in a variety of situation to emphasize the broad applications, like not in a particular typical one way method, but multiple ways of solving those things. And the global to local skills, focus on the conceptualizing the whole task before executing to the parts. That means first of all, in the first instance, we should have a overview of the whole thing, then to translate it into the local skills or the sub skills or the bit by bit action plans. Then sociology is the in which context actually it has taken place, the situated learning context. Social characteristics of the learning environment, like in which context it has taken place, there is a situated learning. Community of the practice, communication about the different ways of accomplishing the meaningful task. Then intrinsic motivation of the students. Students set the personal goals to seek skills and solutions. The intrinsic motivation, why the students have become interested in solving that problem, in taking up that task, that is intrinsic motivation. Then the cooperation, students work together to accomplish their goals, that is community cooperation. Community, that means the students share their knowledge and experience, cooperate with others, and try to sort out the whole thing, accomplish the whole thing together, cooperatively, collaboratively. So, this is the sociology factors like situated learning, the context, community of the practice, what are the different kinds of practices are available for accomplishing those tasks, intrinsic motivation, cooperation. So, these are the factors for design or principles for designing the cognitive apprenticeship environment. So, now here we complete this cognitive apprenticeship approach to pedagogy. So, primarily we can say that in case of on the job training for different kinds of institutes like ITI or automobile engineering or mechanical engineering, even in electrical engineering, all kinds of things. So, where we try to give our students a more kind of on the job training, on the job experience. So, we often call them or engage them in different kinds of internship. So, where this cognitive apprenticeships means training through cognition, training through cognitive approach, training through cognitive skills. So, this kind of environment we create, we design the learning content in that way, and we provide them a kind of learning environment to learn those cognitive apprenticeship skills, like to gradually understand, unfold, learn this kind of cognitive skills, and to make it more open, more explicit, more elaborate, and to articulate it, to verbalize it. So, they themselves not only understand, they recognize, they identify, and they learn those skills. They themselves demonstrate it, evaluate it, and improve the performance. And so, that in this process the basic theme is that, basic philosophy is that whatever knowledge we gain, it must be used for the real world problem. So, whatever theoretical knowledge they have gained, it must be used for solving practical problems, be it automobile engineering knowledge, be it philosophical knowledge, be it economic knowledge, sociological knowledge, whatever knowledge, but how to use those knowledge for solving the real world problems, and in this process how to reshape our thinking process, the cognitive process, through apprenticeship. Apprenticeship means through training. So, development of the cognitive skills, and for that matter, how to design the whole learning situation context in such a way, so that the task can be sequenced in an inductive way, exhibiting the required skills clearly, explicitly, and in that process the students, they observe them, they practice them, they learn them. So, this is the whole purpose of cognitive apprenticeship. Next class will will discuss another new topic. Now, for this session, now we stop here. So, thank you very much.